I can't even say apocalypse. Apocalypse? I think I saw TikTok where people couldn't say words, and I just realized I can't say apocalypse. Apocalypse. There we go. Hello, and welcome to I'm Not Waiting, a show where we dive into various topics and ideas responsible for shaping our minds, our culture, and our world. I'm Charlie, your host, and today's episode tackles a topic that I think is perfect for me because I think it fits my personality and it's going to give you a foundation for where I'm coming from. Our topic today is going to be the original Renaissance man versus the modern day Renaissance man or Renaissance person, also known as a polymath now. I'm also going to share with you the top 10 tips that I think are going to get you on a path to becoming a Renaissance person. So make sure to stick around for that as well. In our first segment, we're going to talk about the definition and history of the Renaissance man. So let's talk about the original Renaissance man, which is a term that would describe certain men that were influential during the Renaissance period in Europe. That's going to be roughly around the 14th to the 17th centuries. They were considered to be well-rounded, individuals that were gifted and skilled in many different areas. Now, Renaissance men are considered to be intellectual philosophers who study a wide variety of subjects. So let's take Leonardo da Vinci as an example, who excelled in the arts and sciences, as well as, believe it or not, fencing and horse riding, along with a bunch of other stuff. Another thing we can look at is the Renaissance man's education, which could have been formal, going to universities, going to various libraries, even traveling around and studying from other cultures. But oftentimes they were self-taught because they were the ones that were leading the way to new ideas and new inventions. They were breaking ground. A lot of mistakes were made along the way, but, they used their experience and again, knowledge that they gathered from all over to help guide them into creating these new things. It was their thirst for learning and knowledge that was key and is key in being a Renaissance person. Often, but not always, the Renaissance man was also athletic, though. I talked about with Da Vinci, he could fence and he could ride horses. But sometimes just enough to be physically fit to perform experiments that required, a little bit of physical prowess. Or maybe they just wanted to learn how to dance so they could impress the socialites or maybe even impress some of the women. All right. So enough about the history. In our next segment, let's talk about the modern day Renaissance person. Okay. One big difference between the Renaissance men of, let's say, yesteryear and the modern day variety is their approach to theology and religion. Back then, it was all about diving into the religious practices and philosophies, while today's Renaissance crowd tends to hit the internet more than they hit the altar. And they tend to search the internet and search for connections to other historical events or writings. Now, speaking of mixing in the divine with the intellectuals, some scientific minds have even tried to bridge the gap between science and the existence of God. So, as a matter of fact, some of you may know the Higgs boson, when scientists were looking for the Higgs boson, it kind of earned its name the God particle. Um, Not really sure where that came from, but it does show you that even in science, they are trying to make a link here or there to religions or religious writings. Another difference these days is that many women have the same opportunities to education and learning and careers that men do. This means that the Renaissance isn't just a men's club anymore. So enter the Renaissance woman. bringing their multifaceted brilliance to the scene. I think there was even a movie written about the scientific women that helped get, you know, the space program going and get the U.S. To the moon. All right. Um, they still probably is some catching up to do politically and socially, and I don't want to get into that facet of it. But we are shining a spotlight, I think, more and more on women rocking those Renaissance vibes. And maybe that's why the term polymath has gained popularity. It's like a gender neutral rebranding or something like that. But I think that polymath kind of feels a little too weird, like some geeky people having an interesting relationship with math or something. I don't know. That's why I'm going to stick with Renaissance people. It sounds a lot more, romantic, if you will, as if, someone's going to stroll in wearing the latest black tie apparel and quoting Shakespeare or something like that. Okay, so back to the Renaissance people. Renaissance people are like the MacGyver or the 007 of today. Artistic, athletic, multilingual, and probably able to cook a multi-course dinner for two. They can be creative, talents. They're going to run the gamut from painting masterpieces to dropping their skills on open mic night. Today's Renaissancean. Okay, I just made that up, but I'm going to stick with that. I'm going to stick with that. So today's Renaissanceans are often found flexing their athletic prowess or casually chatting in five languages like it's no big deal. That's a skill that Leonardo da Vinci also shared and might have approved of and probably used to wow, again, the socialites and maybe get some funding so that he can pay for some of those inventions and stuff. Now, although I know several people that would rather use a translation app, me included sometimes, but how about those guys that actually wrote those apps? A lot of skill going in there, and maybe they have those side hustles and side skills going along to make them a Renaissance person. So, in a world that's moving fast at warp speed and a lot of people wanting to specialize in one area, and it feels comfortable because they only have to focus on one thing, and because there's just so much to learn these days. It's easy to be stuck in that one trick pony type of phase. But that's not for me. And that's why I'm doing this as one of my topics. I think becoming a modern day Renaissance person is essential, not just to stand out as an individual, but to help our society level up as a whole, if you will. When we picture a Renaissancean, it's usually someone with worldwide fame and enough accolades to fill a trophy room. But instead of focusing solely on celebrities whose names they name their kids after, the directions, or they name their pets after, Roman gods, and they own peacocks or something like that. Let's shine a light on the everyday Renaissance heroes, the coworkers who they also are a concert pianist, or the friend who's learning Japanese while also rock climbing, or your pharmacist who doubles as a local artist. Why shouldn't we all strive to be a well-rounded Renaissancean? Yep, I'm going to stick with that. Renaissancean. So, a Renaissancean in today's society is the ultimate multitasking magician, a curious person who juggles science, art, and maybe even the occasional hobby of extreme origami. It's a celebration of those that dabble, create, and innovate across multiple fields, because frankly, who wants to specialize in just one thing when you can do a lot of things and be the most interesting man in the world? When we picture a Renaissancean, it's usually someone with worldwide fame and enough accolades to fill a trophy room. But instead of focusing solely on celebrities who name their pet peacocks after Roman gods, Let's shine a light on the everyday Renaissance heroes. The coworker who also is a concert pianist, or your friend who's learning Japanese while rock climbing, or the pharmacist who doubles as a local artist. Why shouldn't we all strive to be well-rounded Renaissancians? I said it, a Renaissancian again, I'm going to stick with it. So, a Renaissancian in today's society is the ultimate multitasking magician, a curious soul who juggles science, art, and maybe even the occasional hobby of extreme origami. It's a celebration of those who dabble, create, and innovate across multiple fields. Because frankly, who wants to specialize in just one thing when you can do all things and become the most interesting man in the world? All right. So it also highlights how far our society has come in embracing diversity. The term isn't stuck in gender labels. It's like an all access pass to the Renaissance VIP club for anyone's whose mad skills and sick versatility is going to take them across that finish line of becoming that Renaissancian. So, in time, when people thrive on creativity and thinking outside the box, being a Renaissancian makes you a sort of modern day wizard minus the robe and pointy hat, unless you're into that kind of thing, of course. All right. So now you want to become a modern day Renaissancian, or maybe you want to see if you already are one, or maybe you're on your way, but you're still curious how to level up on your talents. Well, I'm glad you asked because next I'm going to go through my top 10 list for becoming a Renaissancian. Now, before we get to that, I want to take a sidestep from another side. And this is where I give my perspective from, the other side of the fence on any given topic. In this case, my advice is for our single circuit or for those that are flying solo but would like to know how they can attract a partner or how to make themselves more appealing or interesting and maybe even more approachable if that's something you struggle with. Listen, being single is like having a buffet pass in life's endless possibilities. So why stick to just one dish? Be a Renaissancian. Learn to play the ukulele while also mastering the fine art of sourdough bread making. Write poetry on weekdays and decode astrophysics on weekends. Do more, dabble more, and be more fascinating. And who can resist a person who knows how to navigate both a karaoke machine and a philosophical debate about time travel? But don't try to become something that you're not or something that ultimately doesn't make you happy just for the sake of making someone else happy. And hey, even if love doesn't come knocking immediately, at least you'll know how to fix your Wi-Fi router while reciting Shakespeare in Italian or over a perfectly brewed cup of homemade kombucha. All right, so enough of that side note. I promised you my top 10 list. So let's go ahead and dive into that list of how to become a Renaissance person. Now, before we get into that, don't forget to like and subscribe to our show. And if you want to hear more of my views on any and all topics, feel free to leave comments and we'll see what I get to and what I don't get to. But for the purposes of this next section, my top 10 list, like I said earlier, I'm going to be focusing on people that want to know how to become a Renaissancian, a modern day Renaissancian. Okay. So here are several tips for becoming that modern day Renaissance person. And be sure to stay to the last one because believe me, I think it's probably the most important one of all of these. All right, so let's get started. Number 10, get your skills on. write songs, poems, and articles, or even tackle coding. It's basically poetry, but for robots. Learn to cook so you can impress people with your gourmet grilled cheese. I have a mean grilled cheese that I make, and my friends, my daughters, my family, they're always asking for it when we go on our camping trips. Maybe learn how to fix a squeaky door so it stops announcing your every move like a drum roll, especially if you're sneaking downstairs at night for a late snack. All right. Number 9, love learning. Be curious about everything. Learn how octopuses can open jars or why we use silent letters in words like night. Watch videos that teach you how to change a tire because Googling it while stranded on the side of the road isn't ideal, especially if it's below zero or 120 degrees or if it's raining out and the phone keeps slipping out of your hand while you're trying to Google how to change a tire. Yes, I know nowadays we have roadside assistance, we also have Lyft and Uber and stuff like that, but you might be out in the middle of nowhere and it could take a while for somebody to get to you. Number 8, be creative. Approach problems like a MacGyver in training. Stuck on a broken zipper? Boom. Pull out a paperclip, you fixed it. Also, reverse engineer stuff, or as I like to call it when I was younger, fix it till it's really broken. My mom didn't really appreciate that. Bonus points if you actually invent something while you were trying to fix something that you previously broke. All right. Number 7, adapt like a chameleon. Change is life's way of keeping you on your toes. Adapt by learning to roll with the punches, like when your perfectly planned trip is derailed by packing the wrong clothes because the weather changed overnight. Number 6, stay physically fit. Flex those muscles, not just in the gym, but while lifting all the grocery bags in one trip. I love seeing those videos on TikTok of you trying to grab 20 bags just so you don't have to go back out to the car. And then you feel like a hero when you did it, but no one's there to enjoy it with you. Dance like nobody's watching, but maybe not in public unless you're really mastered the moves and aren't afraid of being a little bit embarrassed. You don't have to be training for the Olympics though, or have chiseled abs, but you should be able to fight off or outrun the zombies when I can't even say apocalypse. I think I saw TikTok where people couldn't say words and I just realized I can't say there we go when the apocalypse comes. All right. Number 5, dress to impress. Forget the 24/7 sweatpants and the leisure wear that's so popular these days. Dress like you're going to meet somebody important, that you're going to impress somebody important, because, spoiler alert, you are. And it's you. The most important person that you want to dress for to help you feel confident is yourself. Also, think about repurposing your clothes so that, your well-worn old rock t-shirt becomes the new look. Or maybe you can turn a piece of clothing into some chic tote bag. We'll call it uh, sustainability with flair. All right. Number 4, engage with people without being awkward or creepy. Compliment them like a pro. Say something like, "That's a great smile," or "Wow, those shoes are fierce." Or something as simple as, "Hey, I like the way that looks on you." Just don't veer into "your hair looks different today," or "I guess that's a look that some people would like" kind of territory. Make people laugh at yourself. Just don't make people question their choices. All right, number 3. Be cultured. Learn languages, travel, and try exciting, exotic foods. Introduce yourself in French. Bonjour, je m'appelle Jarvie. Be bold. Attempt to order sushi in Japanese. Konnichiwa, toro hetatsu onegaishimasu. Just make sure you don't accidentally ask for, I don't know, octopus testicles. I don't even know. Do octopus have testicles? Either way, that's a conversation starter I don't think you want to get to in Japan. Number two, stay up to date on current events. Be the person that knows a little bit about everything, politics, world news, and maybe why a random penny stock is all of a sudden, skyrocketed and no one's ever heard of it. Find out who the latest pop star is, or what types of tools it takes in order to build that new pergola while you're trying to learn how to build a pergola. Learn what the latest slang words are. Just try to stay in your age group, unless you want to get a lot of eye rolls from the younger generation. Also, learn how to diplomatically exit a conversation or argument about pineapple on pizza. I'm not going to get started on that. I don't like it, but I know some people do. All right, we're down to the last one, as I promised you. The number one, and I think one of the most important things about trying to become that Renaissancean or modern day Renaissance person, or if you so like to use the word polymath, the number one thing is embrace the process and embrace the new you that you're going to become. Becoming a Renaissance person is about the skills that you're going to learn, the curiosity and the creativity, while occasionally laughing at yourself and at the chaos because of the mistakes you make. Be ready to start juggling all these new talents, figuratively and maybe even literally if you're wanting to learn how to juggle, I guess. All right, so that was my top 10. Now, some of you might still be asking, where do I fit in all of this? Where do I fit in all of this? Because I'm the one that decided to do this episode. So, in this segment, I'm going to talk about a little bit about my history, my growing up. I grew up with three older brothers, and it was like living in my own reality TV show, complete with all the action and drama and a lot of questionable decisions. I was the little sidekick constantly trying to keep up and trying to be cool as they are because I thought they were cool, but now that I'm grown up, maybe they weren't as cool as I thought they were. I played pretty much every sport they tossed my way. I picked up the trumpet. I learned to play the guitar to be a little bit marginally cooler, I think. I sketched, I painted, I danced. I was in dance production. I did a little bit of cheerleading. And I even penned a few poems and songs, although I haven't recorded any of that, or I think my poem did get published in some kind of magazine at some point. All of us were summer adventurers. We liked to bike. We went swimming like we were training for the Olympics, and we were winter warriors. We were building snow forts and riding, snowmobiles. We were building, big snow forts that could rival medieval castles. Okay, maybe not really, but at the time we felt like they were pretty cool. And snowball fights? Crazy snowball fights. Maybe some of you know back in the day, every now and then someone sneak in a ice ball or something in there and really cause some damage. Somewhere in between, I decided I wanted to be a stuntman, which was probably influenced by my brothers daring me to do all kinds of stuff that I'm sure had other people and probably my mom screaming, that's probably a bad idea. What about school? Well, school, let's just say I tolerated it, but I somehow managed to find myself in a lot of AP classes. I considered myself to be a little bit of an Einsteinian. I don't even know, Einsteinian. I did join the military and I started out in some electronics, electrician stuff, but then later became a regular electrician on the flight deck. Believe it or not, the USS Enterprise. I grew up in an age that didn't have the internet. It was our kind of our own dark ages, if you will. Now, my mom, she tried to get us to go to church every Sunday. And by tried, I mean she made us go and we went. We also had to go to Sunday school, aka our bonus lectures. I think we called it CCD. I think I also went to something called the Awanas growing up. Anyways, I think Awanas was part of, she wanted us to learn all kinds of different, religions and at least find our way through the whole theological, world. I really just went for the fun and games of Awanas and the donuts, on Sundays. I think it was like once a month. Anyway, the big thing with the Renaissance, you know, title, I guess, is that I had a thirst for knowledge, and that thirst for knowledge stuck with me over the years, and I've managed to take that with me into my jobs. Again, in the military, I was able to travel the world. I met incredible people. I immersed myself in their culture, and I learned more skills than I ever dreamed. And along the way, one thing kind of bothered me throughout the years, and I still hear it, and it still kind of bothers me. And that is the phrase, a jack of all trades, master of none, because it usually paints kind of a negative picture on someone who's decent at a lot of things, but doesn't quite hit expert level on anything. It's kind of like a Swiss Army knife, but it has blunt, blades or something like that. But somewhere inside me, I knew that that was wrong. I knew there was more to this. So I looked it up, and here's the twist to the full version. The full version of that saying is a jack of all trades, master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. I think that gives it, the right context and gives it more of a positive spin. Turns out being multi-talented can be pretty handy because I believe that having any tool that you need in your toolbox beats carrying just one fancy hammer. All right, so enough about me. Let's flip the script here. Picture this. Would you rather go through life wistfully dreaming about building the perfect picket fence, rocking out the drums like a backstage legend, twirling your partner on the dance floor like you were auditioning for Dancing with the Stars? Or cracking the world's toughest cryptography that no one has been able to do, like some type of secret agent, or discovering a brand new species and casually naming it after yourself. Be honest with yourself. All right, so that brings us to the end. We're wrapping this up. So let's talk about our takeaways. Being a modern day Renaissance person isn't just about having a portrait painted of you holding a mysterious smile. It's about committing to the grand adventure of lifelong learning. It means sharpening your skills and mastering the art of adaptability. You don't have to aim for the full-on Renaissanceian status overnight. Just let it happen, piece by piece, like an epic puzzle. Maybe you'll embrace just a few qualities, or maybe you'll dive in head first. It's all about making life and yourself more fascinating, fulfilling, and full of those wow, I did that moments. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of I'm Not Waiting. Now go forth and sprinkle some Renaissancean magic into your own story. And if you like this episode and want to go beyond this episode, and if you're intrigued by the evolution of critical thinking, stay tuned for my next deep dive into history and the future of critical thinking in our society. I promise you I'm going to get better at this and maybe even throw in a little bit more wit, wisdom, and wordplay. But that's it for now. Be kind, be thoughtful, and live your life as if it were on purpose.